several weeks after she was last seen, Los Angeles fire crews pulled Lamb's body from the hotel's water tank on the roof.
She was rotting inside a water tank, and no one noticed. For weeks, guests at the Cecil Hotel brushed their teeth, took showers, even drank the water, completely unaware that Elisa Lamb's decomposing body was floating above them. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Before she vanished, Elisa was captured on hotel security footage inside the elevator, frantic, erratic, pressing buttons like she was trying to escape something, peeking out into the hallway like she was being hunted. And then she was gone. No exit, no trace. And that's when the story twisted into something darker. Because this wasn't just any hotel. The Cecil already had a reputation, a long, haunted history of death, disappearances, and whispers of the paranormal. When her body was finally found, the discovery only deepened the mystery. But nothing about Elisa's death made any sense. And the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. This is the haunting case of the 21-year-old student who vanished in a creepy hotel and was found rotting on the roof. One moment, Elisa was in the hotel's elevator. The next, she was gone. No one saw her leave. No one reported a struggle. She just vanished. Now watch this. It's the last known footage of Elisa Lam alive. She's panicked, stepping in and out of the elevator like she's hiding from something no one else can see. But here's the moment that disturbed the internet the most. Watch how she gestures into thin air. It's like she's talking to someone before she vanishes. And that got everyone on Reddit asking, could someone have been in the elevator with her, just out of the frame? But here's where it gets creepy. As you guys already know, the Cecil Hotel has a past that reads more like a horror movie than a hotel registry. The place is infamous for death. Over the years, it's been home to doses, people ending their lives, and not one but multiple serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, literally lived there during his killing spree. And another murderer, Jack Unterweger, stayed there while targeting women in the area. People have jumped from the windows. Bodies have been found inside rooms. It's been dubbed Hotel Death. And yes, it even inspired American Horror Story Hotel, where Lady Gaga played a bloodthirsty vampire roaming its haunting halls. And yet, people still book rooms. Because for all of its darkness, the Cecil is cheap. Budget travelers still show up unaware or maybe just unconcerned about what came before them. And Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian college student, was one of the people who checked into this cursed hotel on January 28th, 2013. She was assigned to a shared room on the 5th floor, and at first, everything seemed normal. She was friendly, chatty, just another traveler passing through Los Angeles. But within 48 hours, something shifted. Her roommates, people she didn't know, started reporting strange behavior. Elisa had locked them out of the room multiple times. She left them cryptic notes that said things like, "Go home" and "Go away." At one point, she even made them use a made-up password just to enter the room. Her behavior had turned erratic, paranoid, almost like she didn't trust anyone around her. The hotel didn't call the police. They didn't raise any alarms. Instead, they quietly moved her to a private room on the same floor, alone. And after that, things spiraled fast. Because just days later, on what was supposed to be her final day in the city, Elisa completely vanished. According to her travel plans, she was heading north to Santa Cruz next. That afternoon, she stopped by a local bookstore, the Last Bookstore, where the clerk, Katie Orphan, remembered her vividly.
She was going up to folks and talking to them, asking questions about everything from, their recommendations for books and music to places she should visit and how she could get there because she was a visitor using public transportation.
And that bookstore stop would be the last time anyone saw her acting normal. She seemed okay until she wasn't. And that silence turned into a nightmare no one was ready for. Throughout her trip, Elisa had been calling home almost every night. Even after losing her main phone, she still made the effort to stay in touch, checking in with her parents and letting them know that she was safe. So when January 31st came around and they didn't hear from her at all, not a single text, not a missed call, alarm bells started going off almost immediately. What began as a quiet worry escalated into full-blown panic. Her parents, David and Yina Lamb, wasted no time. They boarded the next flight to Los Angeles and filed a missing persons report as soon as they landed. The LAPD took the case seriously and began a coordinated search effort, starting with the place Elisa had last been seen, the Cecil Hotel. Officers went room to room as far as they were legally allowed and even brought in trained search dogs. Those dogs were led through the hotel hallways, common areas, stairwells, even up onto the roof. But what they found was nothing. Her hotel room, once thoroughly inspected, offered no signs of struggle, no blood, and no trace that anything violent or even suspicious had taken place. Almost like she had simply gotten up and walked out without leaving a single clue behind. By February 6th, more than a week since anyone had seen her, the LAPD finally went public. They held a press conference, standing in front of cameras with her parents, asking the public for help. The media picked it up almost instantly. It was the kind of case that stuck. A young woman alone in a haunted hotel, vanished without a trace. Then the LAPD released the elevator footage, and that's when the case exploded. The video went viral almost immediately. Millions of views, conspiracy threads, endless speculation. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had answers. Then, nearly 3 weeks after she vanished, the case took a nightmarish turn. On the morning of February 19th, a hotel maintenance worker was responding to a string of disturbing complaints from guests. People had been reporting low water pressure, strange sputtering sounds from the pipes, and most disturbingly, a foul taste and smell coming from the taps. The employee climbed up to the roof to inspect the hotel's 4 massive water tanks, hoping to find some kind of mechanical issue. But when he opened the hatch of one of them and looked inside, what he found would horrify the world. Floating face up in the dark, murky water was the naked, decomposing body of Elisa Lamb. The rooftop was quickly sealed off, and the water tank where Elisa's body had been found was designated as an active crime scene. Investigators arrived with forensic equipment, prepared to process every inch of the area for evidence. But there was an immediate complication. Elisa's body could not be removed through the tank's small maintenance hatch. It was simply too narrow for the equipment and personnel needed to extract her safely. By the time Elisa was recovered and taken for an autopsy, the story had already broken. News outlets, both local and international, were swarming the scene. Guests who had stayed at the Cecil were now coming forward, many of them completely horrified. They had been drinking that water, showering in it, brushing their teeth with it, completely unaware that a decomposing body was inside the tank the entire time. One British couple who stayed at the Cecil during that time described what they experienced.
There was something wrong. The pressure in the water was terrible. The shower was awful. The water, and when you turned the tap on, the water was coming black first for 2 seconds, and then it was going back to normal. But in UK, we drink water from tap, and it has completely proper, clean, nice taste. But the water here, but we never thought anything of it.
We thought it pollution.
We thought it's just the way it is here.
It was a nightmare no one saw coming. Everyone wanted answers. But when the coroner's full report was finally made public in June 2013, months after the headlines had already gone global, it did not offer the clarity people were hoping for. The report confirmed that Elisa had been found nude, with her clothes floating nearby inside the tank. Everything, her belongings, her body, were covered in a strange sandy residue. Also recovered in the water were her hotel room key and her wristwatch. No illegal drugs were detected in her system, no alcohol, and nothing in the toxicology screen pointed to an accidental dose or poisoning. In fact, there was nothing that could explain how she ended up in the tank at all. No evidence of trauma, no injuries, no conclusive signs of foul play. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder mentioned as a contributing factor. But that explanation did not sit right with the public. Instead of putting the mystery to rest, the autopsy report set off an online firestorm. Thousands of theories began circulating, some grounded in logic, others spiraling spiraling into the supernatural. YouTube channels ran breakdown frame by frame. People demanded to know, how did Elisa get up onto the roof in the first place when the only access points were locked and supposedly protected by alarms? Why hadn't the hotel noticed that she was missing sooner? Why did the security footage feel edited? Was someone else involved, or was this a cover-up? Or was it something far more disturbing? Some believed she may have been followed. Others were convinced that her death had something to do with the hotel's violent, haunted history. And a smaller but much louder group insisted this was not just a crime. It was something paranormal. But if you really wanted to understand how this all spiraled, we need to go back to who Elisa was before the trip. Before all of this, before the hotel, the footage, even the missing persons report, there were signs. Because Elisa never really hid her mental health struggles. On her Tumblr, she wrote with disarming honesty about living with depression and bipolar disorder. She opened up about how hard it was to balance school and mental health, how her academic record, full of withdrawals and inconsistent attendance, might make her look unreliable. She was on medication, dextrine, Wellbutrin, mood stabilizers, the usual combination used to help manage bipolar symptoms, and for the most part, it looked like she was doing okay. She talked about wanting to explore the West Coast, maybe even transfer schools. She mentioned Santa Clara as one option, and even though there was a lot of emotional weight behind her words, there was also a quiet hopefulness, like she was looking for a reset, a fresh chapter. But as you scroll through her posts from that time, you'll start to notice little signs, things that suggest maybe she wasn't as stable as she seemed. She mentioned losing her phone, not a huge deal on its own, but later that detail would feel more significant. Then her tone started to shift. She started talking about possibly meeting up with some people she'd only known online. It sounded spontaneous and maybe even empowering, but also kind of risky, especially for someone traveling alone and already feeling vulnerable. By early January, it was more obvious. She admitted to creating yet another Facebook account, her fifth, because she was feeling paranoid. In that same post, she dropped a line that hit a lot of readers hard. "This is the very start of my depression. Today, I am feeling very low." Shortly after that, the trip began. She went from Vancouver to San Diego, city to city, but even while traveling, things didn't seem to click. She missed a flight after getting lost in the airport, and later she shared that most of her time had been spent doing the same things she did at home: walking, writing, scrolling through life. The only difference was the setting. The feeling, still heavy. Then came a line that in hindsight feels like a waving red flag. "Every now and then, I do something entirely impulsive and reckless." At the time, it probably seemed like a throwaway thought, but now it reads like a quiet warning no one was prepared to catch. Just a day later, on January 27th, Elisa posted about going out with friends to a speakeasy. It was one of the few upbeat moments of her blog. But even then, there was a catch. She mentioned she'd lost another phone, this time not her own, but a borrowed BlackBerry she was using for the trip. And that's where things started to feel off, because only a few days after that post, Elisa disappeared. And here's where things get really unsettling, because Elisa's Tumblr blog kept posting even after she was dead. If you check the archive yourself, it is all there. Scheduled art, quotes, moody film stills, uploaded days after her death. Now, technically there is an explanation. Tumblr has a feature called the queue. You can schedule posts days, even weeks in advance. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was just Elisa being organized, setting up content for her trip. But there's a problem with that theory. Her phone was never found. Not with her body, not in her hotel room, not anywhere. And yet, the posts kept coming. That one detail, those quiet updates from beyond the grave, sparked a wave of theories. Was someone else logged into her account? A hacker? A thief? Someone who knew her? Or worse, someone who knew exactly what happened to her? And just when people thought that the case couldn't get more confusing, new questions started piling up. Questions that made it clear that this wasn't over. One of the biggest questions, the one that never got a solid answer, was how Elisa even got to the roof in the first place. The Cecil Hotel's rooftop wasn't something a guest could just wander onto. The doors were locked, and if someone forced their way up there, an alarm was supposed to go off immediately. But somehow, Elisa made it. No one saw her, and no alarms went off. Later on, investigators floated a theory. Maybe she got up there through the fire escape. Her scent had last been detected near a window that could have led outside. And after her death, someone posted a video online showing how the fire escape could be climbed to access the rooftop pretty easily if you knew what you were doing. So maybe that part is possible. Maybe. But getting on the roof was only the first mystery. What happened next is where things really stopped making sense. Because the water tanks weren't just big, they were huge. We are talking industrial grade tanks, 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall, mounted on concrete blocks. They didn't have ladders or steps. Maintenance workers had to bring in portable ladders just to check inside. And the lids, they were heavy metal, built to stay closed. So the idea that Elisa, possibly in a manic or confused state, managed to climb one of those tanks, lift the lid, crawl in by herself, and then somehow close it behind her? Yeah. That didn't sit right with a lot of people. And for a while, that detail haunted everyone. The image of her trapped inside with the lid sealed shut. But eventually that part of it got cleared up. The maintenance worker who found her body said that the lid was already open when he got there. So no, she didn't seal herself in. But even that didn't really explain what happened. Because the thing is, if Elisa had been up on that rooftop the whole time, just a few feet from those tanks, why didn't the police dogs find her? Search teams had been up there, cadaver dogs, trained to detect even the faintest trace of human body, dead or alive, searched the roof, and they came up with nothing. That detail alone reopened a floodgate of speculation. Some believed that Elisa had been under the influence of drugs or something synthetic, pointing towards her strange behavior in the elevator as possible evidence. But the toxicology report came back clean. No alcohol, no common substances, nothing that would explain a psychotic break or a loss of control. Others argued that by the time her body was recovered, decomposition and water exposure might have broken down any chemical traces. Or, even more chilling, that if she had taken something, it could have been too obscure or too new for a standard test to detect. Then there's that whole thing with her meds. The autopsy showed that the levels of her prescription meds were way lower than expected. And when you compare that to the number of pills left in her bottle, it kind of looks like she hadn't been taking them consistently. That matters, especially with bipolar disorder. Going off your meds suddenly can trigger mania, paranoia, even hallucinations. So maybe that explains her behavior. But even with the possible explanation, there's still a lot that doesn't add up. The autopsy, which should have brought clarity, left out some major details. It barely mentions the results of her SA kit or her fingernail tests. We don't even know if they were properly processed. And for a case this suspicious, that's not just strange. It's a massive red flag. And then comes the part that really shook people. The report noted that Elisa had blood pooling in her anal region. Some experts said that could have been from decomposition, bloating, pressure, all the things that happen to the body after death. But then came another detail. She had a prolapsed rectum. That is not typical. That's not something that usually happens from drowning. It added a disturbing layer to the case because suddenly people are asking a different question. Was something done to her? But despite all that, the coroner still ruled her death accidental. No foul play, just a tragic case of mental illness and bad circumstances. But even that ruling felt unsure. Like they were filling in the blanks with the best guess. So it brings us back to the same haunting question. Was Elisa really just a girl in crisis who slipped through the cracks? Or is there a part of this story that someone didn't want us to find?